Welcome to this week's episode of Ask WWN. This is episode number 5 in our podcast series, Ask WWN. This week's broadcast is obviously going to be found on worldwrestlingnews.com/live. Please check it out, and please check out all of our podcasts that are on our live webpage. Well, to get things started, we're going to talk about the Big Show. And our first question is, I think the whole Big Show storyline about him being broke is absolutely stupid. What are your thoughts? Well, I do not like the gap in logic that he went from an ironclad contract to a guy that will do whatever he's asked to just to keep his job. You know, WWE relies on their audience to have a short-term memory. And, I say this every time I'm asked about the Big Show. So, really, WWE wants to use their talent how they see fit in the current storylines, and that's really the case with the Big Show. And the problem with this is, the show just missed significant time this summer due to injury, and WWE played it off that he was away because he works when he wants to. Well, it makes no sense, and I don't like it. I'll also take this opportunity to dispel any worries people may have about show's financial stability. Big Show has made a tremendous amount of money throughout his career, and has his own tour bus, and is not by any means broke. Our next question is, with the McMahons, Triple H, and Randy Orton part of the powerful corporation stable, will there be a new member added? Well, I've pushed back on adding more members to the second coming of the corporation faction. And, stables are effective, but they also have a limited shelf life and can become overdone very easily. I always like to point out that the NWO, when talking about factions, when was the NWO the most effective? As a three-man group? Scott Hall, Kevin Nash, Hulk Hogan? Or as a faction so big it was split into two separate factions? The question obviously is rhetorical. Adding members can be a good thing in certain situations, as I feel Generation X was more effective in its format than with the featured New Age Outlaws, China, Triple H, and Shawn Michaels, as opposed to the resurrected version, which just featured Michaels, Hunter. And of course, stables are very effective if booked correctly. Our next question, name other tag teams of brothers other than the obvious duo of Jeff Hardy and Matt Hardy. Well, obviously, the Brothers of Destruction. Although they weren't really brothers, it was still a very good tag team. But, if we're talking about the brothers, actual brothers, what about the Harlem Heat and the Steiner brothers? We're so far away from that level of tag team wrestling from today's product, but those were the days. And, like today, we have Jimmy and Jay Uso, twin brothers. And they currently are a function in the tag team division in WWE. And last question is, I'll be blunt, was Jim Ross forced out? Well, this is a question because Jim Ross was recently announced that he would retire. Well, from outside the standpoint, looking in, it kind of seems like he was. His contract was up and he wasn't going to resign, but WWE is spinning that after 20 years, it's time for him to retire, and it didn't help the fact that over SummerSlam weekend at the 2K Symposium, what Ric Flair did, and WWE took the heat out on Jim Ross, which got Ross in trouble, which is the current controversy right now. But we will have much more updates on that on worldwrestlingnews.com. Well, thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of Ask WWN. Remember, tweet us your questions or throw an email at us. Otherwise, thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of Ask WWN.